This is Beering Ain't Easy. Do you spend all week thinking about what new beer you'll try next? Then yeah, this podcast is for you. Come join us while we try new beers, share our ratings, debate craft beer culture, and in the process, throw a few jabs at ourselves. So crack one if you got one, and turn it up.
Alright everyone, welcome to Beering Ain't Easy with Adam and Drew, episode 13.
The cursed episode, which is quite appropriate because this is also our Halloween episode.
That is the most prepared you've ever been for a response to my intro. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say you thought about our discussion last podcast and you came prepared with a response.
You may be right. I mean, it kind of worked with the beer descriptions. They've gotten better by at least 200%. So I thought the least I could do is maybe, try on one of the witty remarks for the episode number.
It was all right. It wasn't spectacular.
So let's recap our previous episode, which was Behind the Scenes.
Behind the Scenes. That was a fun episode.
I did have a good time doing that one. I got to bitch at you a lot, and we got a lot off our chest that has just been building up from this podcast.
It hasn't been building up because we fucking talk about it all the fucking time. It's like we're texting each other, bitching about our responsibilities pretty much every day.
Like every time you screw up on social media, I let you know via text, and same thing with sound. You're like, that seems like a sound problem. Oh, man.
That was a good episode. What about that beer that we had last week?
I still want to go buy some more South African hops because that was like super unique beer. I stand by that. That was pretty fun.
That was I said it last week and I stand by it. That was the most unique hazy IPA that we've had. And if by some chance you didn't listen to last week's episode, shame on you. The beer that we had was Reticulum by Sigma Brewing out of Houston.
I think the only thing out of that episode that I felt was missing is that we talked about behind the scenes, but the only thing we didn't talk about was like the scenery around us. And so right now we're sitting in my house. At the start of this podcast, we were in the Sesh Co-working podcast studio, which is super high class, looks legit. You look in the lab and it's like I've got cushions from my fucking couch up against the wall for like some sort of sound dampening in this room.
But sound guy thinks it makes a difference.
Yeah, sound guy thinks it makes a difference. And I've got some like cheap ass like poster board that I've got on the wall that we put our notes on.
It's embarrassing.
In the days of COVID, sometimes you have to like work from home, and that's where we are today. So I want to go ahead and break in here so we can crack a beer.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and crack this bad boy. Why don't you tell the audience what we got on hand?
All right, today, in honor of Halloween, we're drinking a New Belgium Voodoo Ranger Spicy Special Release Atomic Pumpkin. I'm looking at this can, and I'm like, it's pretty appropriate for Halloween because the Voodoo Ranger guy's freaking skeleton.
It doesn't get any more Halloween than this can. And really, this beer. So it's like an atomic pumpkin beer with a spicy twist.
I know you bought these beers or brought them to the table here.
I was gifted these beers for the podcast.
Hell yeah. I don't know what to think because I've never been much for pumpkin beers. I feel like they're a very polarizing topic in the beer world. What about you? What do you think about pumpkin beers?
I used to love pumpkin beers. As early as last year, I was pretty obsessed with pumpkin beers. And
what's changed?
I have stepped my game up to a whole new level, and I've really become obsessed with IPAs, and particularly hazy IPAs. They're just bringing so much more to the table than a pumpkin beer.
Yeah. I feel like it's an appropriate time of year to have one. So I'm open for discussion on it, but I can't say that I was like, yes, today's the pumpkin beer episode. Yeah.
I was looking forward to this beer because of its uniqueness.
Yeah, I think the spicy thing, I think that draws me in a little bit.
Have you ever had a beer brewed with chilies?
Yeah, I've had a chili beer before, but not a pumpkin chili beer. No. So that's a whole nother level, man.
I've only had a stout with chili in it.
I feel like pumpkin is like one of those topics. It doesn't matter if it's a pumpkin beer or if it's like a pumpkin spice latte. It's a very polarizing topic. People either love it or they hate it.
So I am responsible for procurement of beer, as all of our dedicated listeners know. So I have an interesting procurement story that I need to tell everyone about.
Go ahead.
So a couple weeks ago, I was at a store buying some beer, and there was some singles of the beers that I was looking for. I happened to check the can date on those beers. These were hazy IPAs, so, shorter shelf life. So I look at the date. A couple of them are like, 3-4 months old. I see that same beer in a 4-pack on the shelf. Here I am thinking I'm slick as hell. And I swipe out. I bust off one of those cans from that 4-pack. I put it in my little mix and match.
Dang.
6-pack.
A little switcheroo, huh?
Yeah, I do the old... I was with my middle son. I was like, hey, Caleb, cover me. I got to do this old swapperoo.
Caleb is like maybe 1/10 your size. There's no way he could cover you.
Cover me. Look out. So I'm finally checking out. And, we had a bunch of groceries and then the mix and match. And so when I check out, it's enough cost that I don't really pay attention to the difference. And so when I get home, I look at the receipt, and those motherfuckers charged me the 4-pack price for those 2 beers that I swapped out.
They saw right through your fucking scheme. They're like, I can see a con artist from a mile away. This is him.
Yeah. So they're probably up on the security camera watching me, thinking this guy thinks he's fucking slick.
Yeah, he's thinking that his, kindergarten age son is able to block his big ass.
Lesson of the day. If you swap beers, also swap the sticker.
Beer tips brought to you by Adam. So before we get into the episode, I got like something that I've got to get off my chest. I've got an announcement to make. Let me just start with the story. So because it is a Halloween episode, me, the wife, and the kids went to a pumpkin patch this past weekend. And anyone who goes to pumpkin patches with their kids knows that it's a complete clusterfuck.
It is a complete fucking nightmare.
And so like every year we've gone to this place and we always say, oh, we're not going to go on the first weekend because it's always crazy and it's always too hot in Houston. Let's go later in the season. But what did we do? We went to the first freaking one of the year.
I'm using COVID as an excuse to not go to a pumpkin patch.
It's probably a good idea because we went to that pumpkin patch and they didn't have their shit together and their Wi-Fi broke down and the lines were like jammed up. But long story short, we were at this thing, and obviously by the end of the day in the heat, the kids threw a major meltdown. But we were supposed to take a picture to commemorate an event. And that event is, I'm having a third kid.
Soak that in for a minute, ladies and gentlemen.
And so because we couldn't take a picture to announce it on Facebook, I thought that the next best thing that I possibly could do was just announce it on our podcast.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And so I'm assuming that since you're announcing it here, this is the only method that you're announcing it. So there's no phone calls to any family or friends.
I didn't even tell my parents.
No Facebook posts, no Instagram posts. It's listen to Beer and Ain't Easy podcast if you want to know about this baby. Otherwise, you'll find out when it shows up.
That's pretty accurate. I was thinking in hindsight, we've talked a lot about your third kid and about how he completely destroys your house and everything. And I thought, what a better way to celebrate this COVID madness than for me to just join the fray.
I am hoping and praying that your third child is as destructive as mine. So now that you're having a third child, I got to tell you a little story that happened the other day.
Okay.
So we're all hanging out at my house. Me and the older kids and Jody are just sitting there BSing in our room. I don't remember what we were doing. Then we hear this glass shatter.
Ugh.
So we go out there, and my 18, 20-month-old, however old he is now, he takes a chair from the kitchen, or the kitchen table, and he pushes it and he scoots it all the way over to where the glasses are. He climbs up it, he grabs a wine glass, and he throws it on the ground.
Oh, damn.
It's like...
My only response to that is like, thank God it wasn't like a pint glass.
Oh, yeah.
The wine glasses can go.
Yeah, they can go. You know, I gave him a second one because I'm trying to clear out the wine glass.
Yeah, you need to make room for like specialty beer glasses and all that. Yeah. Oh, man. That's awesome. But in all honesty, like, including my wife, I know literally like 6 other people that are pregnant that are going to have kids in March or April. So I'm predicting a freaking COVID population boom next year.
Baby boom.
It's ridiculous.
So what are you thinking you're going to name this baby?
Well, first I got to figure out if it's a boy or a girl. I have no idea on the name. My wife and I usually fight over the name. So I'm not looking forward to that.
So I thought you were going to say, first of all, I got to figure out if it's mine.
Oh, yeah. That's details. We'll find out at birth.
So I have a proposal.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a good one. So I think you step away from the traditional names that you've been going with. And it's time you let me and the audience select a baby name after a beer of our choosing.
You know, like that seems like a really realistic idea there.
I think I got a shot.
Yeah, I'd like to hear some, like, it's got to be believable that it's kind of a real name, but also a beer. Because, like, if I come at her like hazy IPA, you know. Pale would work for me. I'm pale as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to hear these ideas, though. You bring those ideas to me and make it convincing, and maybe there's a chance. I'm not promising anything.
I just heard a promise. That was my takeaway.
There are no guarantees.
All right, so Drew, what the hell are we going to talk about today?
I mean, we did say this was our Halloween episode, so I feel like we need to like talk about Halloween in some capacity.
Beer Halloween, if I'm not mistaken, is on a weekend.
Ooh. So that means you can get a little sloppy on Halloween.
A little sloppy. little day drinking.
Yeah.
Warm up for Halloween.
It may be enough for me to put on a costume. It takes a lot for me to put on a costume, but like maybe a Saturday Halloween, maybe I can do it.
Yeah, bust it out. So Jody already, I don't know the details yet. We have a whole family plan.
Oh my God. That sounds...
I can't tell you a single
thing. Sounds like nerdy as hell. I can't wait to see you when whatever it is.
It's going to be a badass family.
I hope it's like something like The Incredibles, because we talked about your son being Jack. So I'd like to see you in like a uni. Actually, I don't really want to see you in a uni, but I kind of want to just for the picture.
That was a little bit creepy.
You're like into like costumes though, right? Like I'm not like a costume guy, but
I love costumes. So I went to the University of Iowa, and Halloween, it was the most fun. It was my favorite time to go out and just get shit-faced in a Halloween costume.
What was your favorite Halloween costume you've ever
worn? Question about it. I was a blow-up ballerina.
A blow-up, like a blow-up doll? Or like
no, so like it was like this outfit that was like, it had like a fan, like a battery-powered fan on it.
Yeah.
And so it was like a blow-up, like sumo wrestler ballerina. Nice little crown. Maybe I'll find a picture.
Yeah, do you have pictures?
Well, it depends how far back Facebook goes, but
Ooh, I think the listeners deserve to see this photo.
I will consider it. I will.
It will be posted.
I will. But it was a classic.
You did get in some lederhosen for Oktoberfest, or at least the Photoshop Oktoberfest. So. Least you can do is show your ballerina photo.
It was a good costume. And I was dancing on the dance stage, piss ass drunk in my 500-pound ballerina.
Yeah,
outfit.
I don't know if I want to see these pictures now that you're describing it. Hard pass.
Based on your prior weird, perverted comments, I think you're going to want to see them.
Oh, man.
So I've told you about my Halloween costume. What is your favorite Halloween costume from your past?
My favorite for me was there's a store in Houston that we went to. It's called Arne's, and they do costume rentals. So me and my wife rented costumes, and I picked one that was supposed to be a pimp costume. It was like totally all yellow suit, hat with a feather in it. So I was like, oh, I'm coming in like a pimp. And then I went to a party and people were like, oh, you're dressed like Dick Tracy. I was like totally deflated because I was like, well, I was supposed to be a pimp, but Dick Tracy's pretty cool too.
He's kind of a pimp.
Yeah, he's kind of a pimp. I need like the watch, like the Gizmo watch or whatever, but that's about it.
All right. So all you rambling gave me time to ignore you and think about other Halloween costumes.
Hell yeah.
And I remember this one time as a kid, this complete fucking failure of a Halloween. I still blame my mom for this. Like, I'm just sitting here, I'm like, what on earth were you thinking? But one year, my sister and I dressed up as a pair of dice.
What?
Yeah, so like there was like a cardboard box that was like holes for our arms and head.
Yeah.
And like we put it on and like painted like dice and all that shit. And I just like, I remember like looking at it, I'm like, God damn, I look like a dumbass.
How old were you?
I was in like elementary, like, like 3rd grade, 4th grade, something like that. Yeah. So, at that age, like Halloween, at least back then, was like a sprint. Like my whole mission was to get as much candy as possible.
Got to get that candy.
And so not only did I look like a freaking dumbass in this costume, but then like I wasn't mobile in it. So I couldn't see anything. Like
a robot.
Running like a box and then like falling all over the place. So I remember finally after a little while, I just like fucking and took the box off and just, I had like white paint on my face. And so it's like, people just looked like, what the hell are you? Like,
you're a spooky ghost.
Yeah.
So like, what was the inspiration on that? Was like your mom like into gambling? She's like throwing those dice.
Yeah.
Craps, baby.
Craps. So mom, if you're listening, I will never have my kids dress up as a dice. I think the audience is getting sick of listening to me talk about being a die.
Let's bring on those ratings.
All right, Drew, what are you thinking about this beer?
If you remember, we're drinking Voodoo Ranger Atomic Pumpkin by New Belgium Brewing Company in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Just smelling it, it's really interesting.
It smells like a yam to me. It smells like candied yams. That's like 100% what I get from it.
A really strong cinnamon smell to it.
Yeah, I get that too.
I do think it smells delightful.
Honestly, I think it smells a little bit better than it tastes.
It smells nothing like it tastes.
Yeah.
Like when I smell this, I'm expecting like a sweet beer.
This beer was made with pumpkin, cinnamon, and chilies, and all I get is like a fistful of chilies. Like I'm knocked out. It's hot. It is a little bit kick to it.
I'm sweating over it.
We know Adam sweats. Especially when he's drinking chili beers.
I thought we retired that about 5 episodes ago.
All people didn't listen to that episode, so, it's still fair game. What else are you tasting on this one?
I get a cinnamon. Definitely a cinnamon flavor. I mean, there is a little sweetness. Not as much maltiness as I would have expected for this type of beer. I don't get much pumpkin flavor, though.
It's light. It's a very light beer. But I do get, it's almost like it's a chili beer with a hint of pumpkin, as opposed to a pumpkin beer with a hint of chili. It's definitely more on the chili side.
I get like a spicy intro when I taste it, and a spicy finish. Like a little bit of cinnamon in the middle.
Yeah.
But like spice hits you.
Spice sandwich.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a fucking spice sandwich. I do want to give New Belgium some love.
Okay.
They're like my first love. Way back in the day, Fat Tire was my beer of choice.
They're one of the OGs. They are one of the OGs.
They are one of the OGs. All their different Voodoo Ranger IPAs, I think, are really solid IPAs.
Yeah. No, they're good beers. This is probably not my favorite of theirs. I'm going to go ahead and say that.
I'm going to say it as well. It is definitely not my favorite, and it might be my least favorite.
I think it's time for us to really throw that Untapped rating out there.
All right. What are you going with, Drew?
On this one, like, you're pretty much finished with your beer, and I look at mine, and I'm like, I still have 2/3 of this beer. Because I'm sipping it slow because it's like I'm getting that heartburn while I'm drinking it because of that spice. I got to go 3.25 on it. The smell, like I said, made me really want to drink it. And then I started drinking it and I was like, whoa, it's not for me.
I think they just overhammered the spice. I'm going to 2.75.
Really? You're just going way down there.
I'm going to 2.75. I felt like this beer should have been dominated with pumpkin with a hint of cinnamon and a hint of spice. I love you, New Belgium, but I feel like you missed on this one. I got to hold you accountable. That's what I got to do on this podcast. I'm sorry.
I can respect that. You know, we've been pretty high on most of the beers we've had, so sometimes you got to have a few lows. I feel like this beer would have been better suited if it was served with some Rolaids.
Yes.
It's like,
so were you thinking I was coming in higher than you?
I thought you might.
Because I've been drinking it faster?
Yeah, I thought so. I was looking at mine, and I thought like I was really hitting it hard below the belt at the 3.25, and then you came in, boom,
bam,
nut shot.
I was really surprised that you came in 3.25. This is not a 3.25. You can't hold this beer accountable.
I'm not backing off from my rating.
So let me ask you this. Is it a drink again beer?
I'm probably doing that number where you go to your neighbor's house and you're like, hey, I brought some beers over. Let me just put them in your fridge so that I can abandon them. That's not
a 3.25. All right, everyone. You heard our first inaugural Halloween episode.
A spooky Halloween episode.
Oh, God.
Spooky beer.
This was a spooky beer. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll see you all next time.
This has been a Brewing Ain't Easy production at the Sesh Co-working Podcast Studio in Houston, Texas. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram. And if you want to see what we're drinking, our Untapped handles are Brewing Ain't Easy Adam and Brewing Ain't Easy Drew.